Welcome back everybody to another one of my aviation history videos, and this is going to be episode 4 in my RCAF history, and in this video we're going to be talking about 401 Squadron. And technically 401 Squadron is actually the oldest squadron in the RCAF, but that has, a bit of a complicated history there. So we'll go into that, take a look, but before we go too far, my name is Sean and this is Sean's Aviation. And just before we jump into this video, I do want to say thank you to everybody out there who has been following, who has subscribed, who have liked the videos, the people who are interacting through comments. I do appreciate that all. It is getting me that one step closer to that landmark of 1,000 subscribers. And for anybody out there who is wondering, I do plan on monetizing this channel, but only in the sense that it's going to offset some of the costs involved in the back end of running it. As I'm sure you've noticed, building these models takes up a lot of material. And up until now, that's just been coming out of my back pocket. So if I can offset those costs a little bit, it allows me to get some slightly better material, get some newer models, get some new stuff going on, get some the construction done. As well, it's going to help offset with some of the travel I do going to air shows, and especially as things open up post-COVID, to some of the different locations that I plan on doing some on-location filming. So there are costs incurred. Up until now, I've been doing it in my back pocket, and at some point, like I said, when I hit those 1,000 subscribers, I will monetize. So if anybody out there is questioning that, I will, but it's only for the back end to balance. So on that note, if you haven't subscribed yet and you like the content you're seeing, please subscribe down below. Click that like button. If you don't like the content you're seeing, let me know why. Send a comment over, let me know what you don't like, what you think I could do better, and I'll do my best to try to make things work. So thank you very much, guys, and here we go, onto the video. So 401 Squadron officially got its start as number 1 fighter squadron, which officially formed at RCAF Trenton on September 21st of 1937.
This, however, wasn't really the beginning of this unit, as the nucleus had formed as the fighter flight of the RCAF at Camp Borden on April 1st of 1930 with Siskin fighters, which the RCAF had only just purchased in 1929. You can argue that the history goes back all the way to 1918, when one squadron was formed as a Canadian unit within the RAF during World War I, but there are some breaks in that timeline, so I'm going to use 1930 for this video. Now, this flight moved to Trenton in September of 1931, which had only opened 1 month previous as the RCAF's primary training base. It became the fighter flight of number 3 Bomber Squadron when it was stood up on September 1st of 1935. And this brings us to September 21st, 1937, when it was spun off as number 1 Fighter Squadron. The unit was still flying Siskin fighters, which in September of 1930 was still Canada's primary fighter aircraft. In August of 1938, the unit moved to Calgary, Alberta, and in February of 1939 received its first quote-unquote modern fighter for the RCAF 14 Hurricane Mark 1s that had been built in England. These were owned by the RCAF, but still had the 2-bladed fixed-pitch wooden propellers. On September 10th, the unit was transferred to St. Hubert, Quebec, and mobilized for wartime duties, and on November 5th, it was transferred to Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, in preparation for its trip overseas. The first personnel began the process of heading overseas via steamship on November 9th, with the last of the personnel leaving on June 8th of 1940. On May 28th of 1940, the unit absorbed the personnel of 115 Fighter Squadron, which had been based in Montreal, in order to help bolster its ranks. In one of only 2 cases, the unit brought their aircraft with them from Canada, and they were the only fighter unit to do so. When the unit arrived in Europe, they were assigned to Fighter Command with number 11 Group and were based at Middle Wallop, and the whole unit was on site by June 21st of 1940. It was assigned the squadron code YO and used this for the duration of the war. Unfortunately, the Hurricanes that they brought from Canada were not up to snuff for operations, and the unit was sat idle until it could be re-equipped with combat-ready aircraft. These Mark 1s were supplied by and owned by the RAF, and this would be the standard for almost all of the following 400 series units. Canadian personnel flying RAF aircraft. The unit was moved to Croydon on July 4th and then on to Northolt on August 17th. The unit CO flew a number of missions with 111 Squadron to gain experience, and the unit was ready to go by August 24th, 1940. On this first mission, the squadron made their first kill, although it was an inauspicious start as they shot down 2 of the Coastal Command Blenheims, killing 3 of their crew members. Its next mission, on August 26th of 1940, 10 of the unit's Hurricanes encountered 25 to 30 DO-215s, and the unit claimed 2 destroyed and 2 damaged. This was the first RCAF unit to encounter the Luftwaffe and the first unit to claim a kill, although the unit did lose 2 Hurricanes in the encounter. The months of September and October were busy as the unit fought the Luftwaffe in the skies south of London, and they suffered a high loss and accident rate. In the 53 days it was in the battle, it claimed 30 kills for a loss of 27 of their own aircraft. On October 10th, the unit was moved to Scotland to recover and participated in patrols over the Clyde approaches. In February of 1941, the unit was moved back south to Digby, and on March 1st, in accordance with Article 15, the unit was renumbered 401 RCAF Squadron. In May of 1941, the unit converted to the Hurricane Mark II, and in September of 1941, converted to Spitfire Mark IIs. But they only flew those for about a month, as they converted to Spitfire Mark Vs in October of 1941. At the same time, the unit moved to Biggin Hill to continue protecting England from the Luftwaffe, but also began flying some offensive flights over occupied France. They shuffled from Biggin Hill to Gravesend to Eastchurch throughout 1942, before going to No. 15 Armament Practice Camp in Martlesham in July, where they began to convert to the new Spitfire Mark IXs. By August, they had fully converted and were back at Biggin Hill by August 3rd, before going to limp back to Biggin Hill and then on to Kenley in September. Throughout 1943, the unit continued to fly operations over the continent using Spitfire Mark IXs and moved a few times from Kenley to Catterick on January 23rd, Red Hill on May 29th, Staplehurst on August 7th, Biggin Hill on October 13th, and they stayed here until April of 1944 when they moved to Tangier. Importantly, in September of 1943, the unit fell under the command of the 2nd Tactical Air Force, the RAF's main ground attack/Army Support Command. On June 18th, only 12 days after the D-Day landings, the unit moved to Airfield B4 at Bonneuil-sur-Mer in France. This led to a quick succession of bases as the unit followed the front lines through France and into Germany. The bases are as follows: B-18, Cristeau, France, August 8th. B-28, Évreux, France, September 1st. B-24, Saint-André, France, September 2nd. B-44, Prewar, France, September 3rd. B-56, Evere, Belgium, September 7th. B-68, Le Clos, Belgium, September 21st. B-84, Rips, Netherlands, October 3rd. B-80, Volkel, Netherlands, October 14th. B-88, Hesch, Netherlands, December 6th. B-108, Rhine, Germany, April 21st of 1945. B-116, Wunstorf, Germany, April 15th. B-152, Fassberg, Germany, May 13th. The unit's last operational mission was flown on May 5th with Spitfire Mark IXs from Wunstorf, when 2 4-plane flights flew patrols around Hamburg. Germany surrendered on May 7th, 2 days later. One notable event was on October 5th, 1944, when 5 401 Squadron Spitfire Mark IXs encountered an Me-262 and claimed the first jet kill for any RAF RCAF unit. In May 1945, the unit received a small number of Spitfire Mark 14s, but eventually the unit standardized on the high-back Spitfire Mark 60s, which looked externally similar to the Mark IXs. It was disbanded on July 10th, 1945. It was the highest scoring unit of the 2nd Tactical Air Force, with 112 victories claimed, and its total for the whole war was 186 kills, 29 of which it claimed while designated No. 1 Squadron. The post-war life of 401 Squadron began on April 15, 1946, when the unit was activated at RCF Station St. Hubert as an auxiliary fighter unit and assigned the squadron code AB. The first aircraft it had were North American Harvard Mark IIs, which arrived in September of 1946, and their first real fighters, Vampire jets, arriving in March of 1948. It is very hard to find original pictures of these early aircraft, so some of these will be drawings and profiles, but you get the picture. In September of 1952, it was given the City of Westmount title. and in December of 1954, the unit received a number of Silver Stars to help with pilot proficiency. The unit gave up their Vampires in February of 1956, and in October of 1956, the unit began receiving the Sabre Mark Vs. In October of 1958, the unit was redesignated as a light transport unit, and the Silver Stars and Sabres were traded in for Expeditors. In October of 1960, the unit also received Otters to work alongside the Expeditors, which were eventually retired in October of 1966. In February 1968, the unit was absorbed into the Unified Canadian Forces as 401 City of Westmount Air Reserve Squadron and continued to fly Otters. Some of the later history for this unit gets a little murky, but as best as I can tell, the Otters were retired in early 1980s, sometime around 81-82, and the unit started flying the CH-136 Kiowa. The best info I can find is that 401 had a small group of helicopters and borrowed from 438 Squadron as needed. In 1991, the unit was renamed 401 Helicopter Operational Training Squadron, although this designation change seems to have been more administrative and not much changed for the squadron's members or its mission. The unit was disbanded on June 23, 1996, after the CH-136 was retired during a general drawdown in Canadian Forces air assets. On June 30th, 2015, in a ceremony at Cold Lake, 401 Squadron was reactivated as a tactical fighter squadron flying CF-18s. It is there to complement 409 Squadron, and interestingly, before 2009, there were two units at Cold Lake, 416 and 441, but this was reduced to one with the merging of those two units and renaming it 409. Only 6 years later, 401 came back and the effort spent merging the two prior units comes into question. Almost immediately after forming, the unit was sent overseas to Kuwait to participate in Operation Impact, Canada's mission to target ISIL forces in Iraq and Syria. Very quickly, however, in November of 2015, the decision was made to halt offensive action, and the Canadian mission consisted of surveillance and transport, meaning 401 Squadron returned home. This was 401's first overseas posting since the end of World War II.
So as we've seen, 401 Squadron has a long and storied history, and having it back as a fighter squadron honors that long tradition held by the squadron. So as I mentioned at the beginning, the history of 401 Squadron goes back to No. 1 Fighter Squadron, which can technically be traced back to the Canadian Air Force component of the RAF, which was formed in 1918. So as such, 401 Squadron celebrated its 100th anniversary during 2018, and many of the unit's aircraft carried the original squadron code from World War II of YO on the tail, with a maple leaf and an individual letter to honor the World War II history of the unit. Now, as the 100th anniversary of the RCAF is coming up in 2024, it will be nice to see one of its original fighter units still proudly serving the country. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time.
Thank you for watching, guys, and as always, if you are interested in any of the content you see, you can access my website at www.seans-aviation.com. You can see all the latest pictures of aircraft and museums and the build logs of all of my current models and past models on that site. And if you're interested in any of this content, please click the subscribe button here on YouTube to follow more. Thank you very much, and see you guys next time.